you feel like you watch too many poachable balls whiz by you and you're like, ugh, I should have poached on that one, then you should check out the Doubles Playbook because inside there are 48 plays from Martina Navratilova and the Bryan brothers that show you how to set up easy put-away volleys and overheads. If you look at other sports, teams run plays. Football teams run plays to score touchdowns, soccer teams run plays to score goals, and basketball teams run plays to score baskets. When it comes to your doubles game, you can run plays to set up easy put-away volleys and overheads. If you go to tennisfiles.com/doubles playbook, Martina Navratilova will personally show you one of her all-time favorite plays called the prognosticator so you can see if the doubles playbook is right for you. I've used many of the plays from the doubles playbook in my doubles matches and think you should definitely take a look at it if you want to improve your doubles game. Just go to tennisfiles.com/doubles playbook to check it out. That's tennisfiles.com/doubles playbook to check it out right now. Hey there, and welcome to the podcast. I hope you're doing well and are getting to play a lot of tennis these days. And today I have an interview with Dr. Reza Ghorbani of APMI Health and Wellness Center in Bethesda, Maryland, which is close by to where I reside. And pretty cool how we met, actually. I never played against Reza, or Dr. Ghorbani, I should say, but we were both in a 9-0 mixed doubles league, and my teammates played against him. And then through a mutual friend, John, we met and started talking, and I found out that he has a really fantastic practice as well as a huge passion for tennis and for Rafa Nadal, as you'll find out later in the interview. But I'm really excited for this interview and for you to hear it because we talk about a lot of really important subjects, such as the critical concept of early intervention, how to train your body to prevent injuries, the best exercises to strengthen your ankles, advanced recovery methods such as cryotherapy, Dr. Ghorbani's experience visiting the Rafael Nadal Academy, why you've got to be proactive about treating your injuries, and a lot more. So this was a very fun conversation and very informative one as well that has really shown a light for me on being more proactive about my injuries whenever I experience them and to really go and seek treatment. So yeah, with that, I will leave it to the interview right now. So let's go to it. And I hope you really enjoy it. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Tennis Files podcast. It's really a pleasure and an honor to have on Dr. Reza Ghorbani on the podcast. And it's kind of funny because we met through a mutual friend / us playing on opposite 9-0 USTA League tennis teams. And then I learned a lot about you, Reza, and your wonderful practice at APMI Health and Wellness that you opened up somewhat recently, which we'll get into. But yeah, it's going to be really fun to hear about your philosophy and approach to health and wellness and injuries and so forth. So really great to have you on. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Mehrban. It was really a pleasure to meet you, as I said, as you mentioned, a few weeks ago, and through our common friend. And I'm really honored to be here and chat with you a little bit. I know you came and took a little tour of our facility here, and you thought it might be a good way to sort of tell everybody about my philosophy of practicing medicine and my approach to health and wellness.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, exactly. I went through your facilities. It was a really fun tour and just, Rafa stuff everywhere and amazing TVs and machines and everything. And yeah, it was really cool. Really one of the nicest places I've been to in terms of that type of facility. So just, I always get great stories about how my guests got their start in tennis. I want to ask you how you got your start in the game.
Well, it's interesting. My uncle used to play tennis growing up back in Iran. And he was sort of an official government person, and he would go from sort of state to state and set up their educational system. And wherever he went, he used to go and make sure that they have a nice tennis facility. And if they didn't, in the school system, he would help them fund it and sort of ramp up, make it nicer, or even build a tennis court from the beginning. So I watched him whenever I visited the family playing tennis, and I got interested. And one day he was playing tennis, and I picked up one of his extra rackets, and there was a wall when I sort of hit against the wall. And he finished his tennis game, and he came and said, "Oh, I didn't know you're interested in tennis." And at the time, I was about 8 years old, I think. And he took me to the pro shop and bought me a tennis racket and a tennis, shirt and short and the whole outfit. Came back home, and my father was very excited that his son got present from my uncle, and big smile on his face. And my uncle told him that, yes, I spend X amount of money on this outfit, but you're going to be spending a lot of money for many years to come. My dad didn't get it at the time. And we came back from visiting my uncle back to our hometown in Tehran. And my uncle mentioned to my dad, "You got to go sign him up in a tennis club, some lessons." And we came back, and we went to a tennis facility. It was a public place near a park in Tehran. And we found a tennis coach that used to teach tennis to juniors as well as adults. Signed up 30-minute sessions, I remember, and got my first lesson there. And that's how it kind of started at around age 8 and a half.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And yeah, as you mentioned, so my dad is also Persian from Iran, so really cool to have that link as well. And I read a preview of an article coming out about you, which is fantastic. And wanted to ask you about your experience like during the Iranian Revolution. That was obviously a tough time for a lot of people, and yeah, I mean, how was that like trying to play tennis? I read of a particular instance in that article, and just want to know overall. And you can also talk about that time, how tough it was.
Well, I started playing tennis before the revolution, 1979 revolution. And for several years, going to the tennis club and playing tennis with adults and juniors. And it was like playing tennis in anywhere in the world, like even America. And when the revolution happened, obviously, for a period of time, the businesses closed down, tennis clubs, schools, and everything else. And when the new government took over, for a period of time, they were against tennis, and they viewed it as a Western sport. And they were limited. Nobody could play tennis. Actually, one of my tennis coaches, Mansour Barami, who now lives in Paris, France, he did they've done many shows on him and interviews, and he talks also about that he couldn't coach anymore, he couldn't play tennis anymore, and I, like many other people, couldn't play tennis. Obviously, for me, it was more recreation, but unfortunately, for a lot of tennis coaches like Mansour, it was their livelihood. That's how they earned a living, and they couldn't play tennis anymore. And he left before the government was allowing people to start, playing tennis again in a limited fashion. The first thing that they did was they separated men and women, and we couldn't play tennis together. And for a long time, women couldn't even play tennis. Then they made it sort of only a certain time women can go play tennis, and the area that they were playing had to be sort of secluded so nobody could see them, and they had to wear certain uniforms to cover their bodies. And then we were not allowed to play tennis with them. We were only allowed to play with our male gender. So that kind of continued for a few years. I was there. And then I obviously left Iran and came to America to pursue my education at age around 16 and a half.
Oh wow. Yeah, quite an interesting journey over there. And it's really cool that you trained that Mansour Barami trained you. I mean, as we all know, he's just so entertaining and endearing, and his trick shots are iconic as well. And he also had a very respectable career. And yeah, I was reading how, as you mentioned, he had to stop playing tennis, and I think he played like backgammon for a while instead, which is very interesting. Very intellectual he is. But In terms of training with him, can you talk about like at what age it was that you trained with Mansour Barami? And then I'm curious to ask you as well about like what are some of the things that you learned from him as such a top level player?
Well, as I said, I started age 8.5 or so, and I was playing with a tennis coach. Was actually originally he was from Pakistan, and he
Mhm.
had moved to Iran, and he was again teaching in Iran, and he was at the time teaching the royal family. He with the Shah of Iran, and he used to go to the palace and teach them tennis, and that's how originally on a tour they saw him play tennis, and they invited him to stay over, and he stayed over, and I had the privilege to work with him, and then a few years later, I was trying to get into some junior tournaments, and that was when I was, I saw Mansour playing various tournaments, and I approached him, and through my family, obviously, they asked him if they would coach me. So he coached me about I would say less than a year, and then obviously, he everything was closed down, and he had to leave. And a couple of years later, I'd left. Playing with him was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things. He didn't teach us any trick shots. Uh, we just watched him doing the trick shot. That comes kind of naturally. But he helped me think more as a competitor on a tennis court. And obviously, the game of tennis has changed tremendously from when I was training, when I was playing, up to now. But it was just more mentally that he took me over the edge, so I could compete in the junior level. And fortunately, I was able to win several tournaments with his coaching and leadership.
Very cool. Very cool. Just curious. I mean, sometimes we take breaks from tennis, and sometimes we can't play. Like, how tough was it for you mentally during that period when you were really restricted from playing tennis?
Well, it was hard. I mean, it was hard, not just playing tennis, but a lot of things that we took granted before the revolution, as far as the freedom of doing a lot of things, were taken away from us. I was at the time a teenager, so it was hard to understand what's happening around us. And especially when we had them and they took it away from us all of a sudden, literally overnight. So it was really hard, and tennis was a sport that I really enjoyed playing, and it kind of kept me out of trouble. I would say, summertime, I was just playing tennis after school. We didn't have organized sports in our school, so I would go to the tennis club and play. Helped me meet. I was playing not only juniors my age, but I also was playing people who were older than me. And it was really a nice way to get to know people, and people who would be much older than me. And I was a kid, then they would have spoken to me because on the tennis court, we had something in common, and I was able to beat them or give them a good game. They became friends with me, and I made a lot of good friends that they were older than me. And I learned a lot. I grew up pretty fast, just being surrounded by people from many different backgrounds and many different ages. That again, tennis brought us together. Tennis is a great sport. It's one of the I just always say it's a very social sport. It brings people together from every nationality. And even if you don't speak the same language, when you go play tennis, you speak the language of tennis. And and not only from many aspects of physical, mental, but again, it's a very sociable game that you can play doubles, you can play mixed doubles, you can play singles. It's just a great sport. I can go on and on, I'm sure, about tennis. You probably a lot of guests have talked to you about the why they love tennis, but I can talk till tomorrow about it.
Yeah, there's so many facets of it. Just, I mean, you learn a lot of life lessons from tennis, and you meet so many people that help you in life and become your best friends. So yeah, it's an amazing sport. I'm curious, Reza, about when the intersection of tennis and your medical prowess began. Like, at what point did you decide to combine the two? And I mean, you can obviously like talk about the lead up, your medical career beforehand, and then how they intersected.
Well, I again played tennis starting at very young age. Then when I came to America, I played for my high school team, and then I played for college. And then after that, when I went to med school, it was kind of hard with the time and start playing less and less. And then when I got to my residency, it was became almost impossible to fit it in. So I did not play tennis for many years to come. Occasionally, being on vacation somewhere, that I would just pick up a tennis racket and play. I still continued to watch tennis, and at the time they didn't have Tennis Channel like they do now, that you can watch tennis being broadcasted everywhere. So whenever I, was able to watch some tennis on TV, I would watch it, and so that was kind of tennis on the side. And then I continued with my, developing my career in medicine. I specialized in pain management, to be specific. And, pain is something that you could have pain from your spine, your back, your neck, your knees, your hip. So it's a lot of musculoskeletal reasons that you could have pain. So that was kind of my career, treating people with pain, various type of pain. People will come to me because they just had injuries on a tennis court, or doing various type of sports, or just injury at work, or many different reasons, or just getting older. And I really enjoyed treating people. Unfortunately, I would see a lot of people after the injury had occurred, and I was thinking to myself, it would be great to help people, number one, not to get injured, and also after our people who do get injured and we treat them, to help them not to get injured again. What can I do to help them not to get injured? So as I was sort of growing into my field of pain management, thinking like that, more than just treating a physical problem at the moment, I started getting more excited about tennis. And that was after almost 2 decades of not playing tennis continuously. And I think, again, Mansoor had something to do with it to bring me back to tennis. The story goes that I had developed a topical pain relief cream at the time, and I was trying to, have my patients use it, talking about it in various media. And one day I saw Mansoor on TV at Wimbledon, sitting right near Bjorn Borg and watching a tennis match in the center court. So I got in, Googled him, and I found out he was living in Paris. I'd lost touch with him for many years. And I sort of found him on Facebook, sent him a message, didn't hear back from him for, I would say, maybe several weeks. Then I got a message from Mansoor that, hey, Reza, great to hear from you. And what do you do? Where are you living? So I told him about, my career. And next thing I know, he contacts me and says, hey, I have, some knee pain, and I want your opinion. So we started chatting about that. And next thing you know, Mansoor invited me to Paris to go to the French Open as his guest. And I went there and met some great tennis players that he introduced me to. He was, the most gracious host. And it all of a sudden ignited for me to get back to the world of tennis. And then at the same time, as my career had developed in the pain management world, I decided to combine them together and see how I can sort of help the people who play tennis and get injured, because that's what I start seeing. And as I was, not young anymore, and I was afraid to get injured myself, started thinking about how I can develop a program for myself when I go on a tennis court, not to be like the other guy who's injured and they play tennis and for a week they can't play anymore, and got into the sort of developing the program and combining them together. And again, we can talk about where I am today in the context of combining the medical background with the tennis world.
Yeah, I love that, Reza. And you said something where you started in pain management, that was your specialty, but then you gradually went to being able to tell people what they have to do to not get injured. So, what are some just like general principles for people that they should do to prevent injury or re-injury?
Well, first thing that when I wanted to get back to playing competitive tennis, I looked at it and I said, what can I do to prevent injury? And the first thing I was thinking was the fuel that I put in your body is very important. So I thought about eating properly. As a medical student and later on a resident and being a physician, we always tell our patients eat well, but we really did not follow that ourselves. We never had time. We always were busy. We were always on call doing things. So I thought to myself, I really should do what I preach. So I got involved with a nutritionist who was telling me not necessarily lose weight, but eating healthy, which would eventually end up by eating healthy, eating properly, you would lose weight. But it was more eating healthy. That was the most important thing. So that was one of the things that I started looking into and started eating healthy. And I did end up losing some weight, and I started feeling better by eating healthy. The second thing was I tried to spend, I don't want to say more time outside of the tennis court than being on the tennis court, but a lot of time outside of the tennis court in a gym. And not necessarily lifting weights and building muscle, but working on agility, working on footwork, working on a lot of things that on a tennis court, you're not just running back and forth. You're running side to side. You're running in circle. You're doing a lot of change of direction. And you need to be very smart about how you do it and prevent any fall, any twisting, or things like that could happen. So I started working with a personal trainer who was working on a lot of those things. And obviously, we worked on some muscle building, which protects your ligaments, your joints, and things like that. So working with that personal trainer was important. And the combination of those two, and then obviously I got into playing with some tennis coaches again, was I was able to play in a competitive arena with less chance of injury. So that was kind of my idea, and that's what I still recommend to a lot of people that try to work off court, doing a lot of things that you can do to build up your muscle, your ligament, and things like that, and protecting your joints, and then working smart on your footwork and agility, and obviously putting the right fuel in you is going to help as well. And then later on, I got into other fancy ways of recovery, and that was cryotherapy, which I think when you came to my facility, you tried it. And again, going back to Mansoor, he was the one who really pushed me into bringing cryotherapy into my practice. He was telling me that how at the Tennis Federation in France, they built a cryotherapy chamber and he was using it and he really found it helpful in recovery. That helps with the improving circulation and the reducing inflammation of all the joints and muscles that he had and working out. And it took me a couple of years convincing from Mansoor, and did some more research. And then finally I brought it into my practice and I incorporated that into my literally everyday life and off court recovery. And then we got into other types of recovery, being yoga, stretching, massages. Those are all very important to do to prevent injury. So that's kind of in the overall of preventive injury. And then the next thing is early intervention, which I think we talked about it in my facility during a tour. That number one, you want to not get injured. That's the ultimate goal. Unfortunately, no matter how much you try, you still may get injured. Now, if you do get injured, the key is to treat that injury as quickly as possible. And that's going to change the outcome of your recovery, short term and long term. An example being that I was playing a tennis tournament during Labor Day at the place that we met, JTCC. And I lost the first set to this guy who was the first time I was playing with him. I was just still trying to learn how I can play against him. Took me a whole set to figure that out, unfortunately. The second set, I was up, and at one of the points, I was going side to side, changing direction, and all of a sudden, I twisted my ankle and almost 90 degrees and fell to the ground. That was the first time that this had ever happened to me. The ankle starts swelling up a little, pain. Immediately, I put ice on it, took some medical time out, and again, I was up, 5 game to 3, I think, or 2, and I was serving. So I thought to myself, listen, I can go back. I can just finish this game with some good, smart serving. I don't have to run around and even the plays, and then I can quit at that time. And this was the semifinals. So I went in and I served and I won the set. And then I told the guy I have to withdraw. Next day, I was in my physical therapy office and I started working on my ankle. The various equipment that we have, as well as some manual work. And for 2 weeks straight, I was in the physical therapy office working on my ankle. After 2 weeks, I was able to play a 3-hour match, and I called the guy that I lost, set up another match, and I was able to beat him. So the point of that whole thing was, and I was telling him, is early intervention. Had I not done what I did, being in a physical therapy office and working my ankle, my outcome would have been a lot worse. The area would have been more swollen, there would have been more damage, and it would be really harder to get back to where I was. So early intervention is the key to treat an injury.
Love that. And so obviously some follow-ups here. I'm curious a little bit of what you did specifically. You said that after you got the injury, or when you were ready to, then you immediately worked on your injury. So what did you do? Maybe just like a couple things, exercises or anything else you can let us know about.
Well, specifically, my therapist was working on manually reducing the swelling because there was some fluid that, because of inflammation, was building out in the joint area as well in the ligament in my ankle. So manually, they were trying to kind of move the fluid out and spread them out. It was a little painful while they were doing it, although they're using some topical creams that helps with the pain. And then we used a lot of ice to reduce the swelling. I used cryo machine again to help bring down the swelling inflammation. We also used the machine, which is similar to a TENS unit, electrical stimulation. By stimulating the area, you again improve the blood flow. And the blood flow is what takes away some of the excess fluid that is built up and helps you recover much faster. So in a swelling injury, again, you want to decrease the swelling because that pressure prevents you of moving your joint and also makes these ligaments stiffer. So the exercises that we were doing was to stretch these ligaments. And again, being in the ankle, a lot of flexion, extension, rotation of my ankle to help these ligaments get back to the normal. Because when they stiffen up, it's much harder to run on them, jump on them, and then you can tear these stiff ligaments later on. So those were the kind of exercises that we did, stretching these ligaments.
Got it. Very cool insight, Reza. And then in terms of just generally speaking, I mean, you mentioned a lot of different aspects to keeping healthy, including eating healthy, and then agility and such, and then muscle building, yoga, stretching. So I'm wondering, like, is there some sort of formula for like figuring out like how much you need of each, in terms of like, oh, I need X% of stretching on a day, and then Y% of agility training, Z% of muscle building, etc.
Well, it varies obviously from person to person, because when you start with somebody who has a nice amount of muscle, you may be focusing on other things. Or if you work with somebody who doesn't have muscle, you want to build up some muscle to protect the joints and the ligament. So it really varies from person to person. And that's why working with some professionals, it would help you sort of guide you in the whole journey. It's really hard to do it on your own. And I know a lot of people this day and age are able to get on Google and various apps that they tell you do this exercise or that exercise, but not having sort of somebody who can guide you through these whole journey, you could be doing things that is redundant or you're missing. So my recommendation would be to at least start with some professionals, but then after that you can do things on your own. That would be the best advice I can give to somebody. It's like, I have patients who come in and they have back pain. We talk about going to physical therapy and they tell me, oh, I do things, why do I need to go to physical therapy? And what I tell them is that, first time you go to a physical therapist, they can evaluate, they can see your deficiencies, and they can see your strength from a third party view. And then they can sort of teach you and guide you some exercises, and then you can do things on your own. You don't necessarily need to go and work with a physical therapist, or in the case of this journey that I was telling you, spend money constantly working with a personal trainer or a nutritionist or this and that. But you need to start somewhere, and then later on, you're on your own to follow those things. And occasionally you might want to go back and be reevaluated of how you're doing, but seeking some professional help at the beginning, I think it's important.
Yeah, 100%, Reza. And I feel like a lot of people, and this goes back to your philosophy of getting, working on an injury as soon as possible. I mean, there's a lot of people, probably most people, when they get an injury, they don't seek any sort of treatment and they're not proactive. I'm wondering, like, from a mental perspective, like, why do you think that is, that a lot of people don't really take much proper action when they get an injury?
Well, it's denial. I mean, we all deny and we don't want to accept that we need help and we're injured. People feel that if they use the word injury, it's a negative thing. We've seen a lot of juniors that they play tennis. When they get injured, they even are afraid to talk to their coaches about it or their parents, and they keep playing through an injury because they're afraid that they're going to be put to the side, and then they're never going to get the scholarship that they want to get to go to a certain college. And that's kind of the wrong mentality. They think that now they're going to be put a sticker on them that they're injured players. Unfortunately, that from that sort of the junior level thinking to the adults also, obviously have denial. They don't want to say I'm injured because that means I'm old or I did something wrong. It's just a very mental thing, trying to get over that. People have to change their thinking. They should think of it as this is part of the process. We are going to get injured. It's inevitable. And we just need to treat this as soon as possible. Now, another issue is that acceptance. I have many friends in a club that they play tennis on a Monday and they can't play tennis again until Friday because they feel like, well, they need to recover that long and they think it's normal. To me, that's not normal to wait 4 or 5 days to play another tennis match. But that sort of becomes acceptance, and that they live with it and they feel fine. I never forget an example of my medical clinic. I had a elderly gentleman came with his wife, and they sat in my exam room. I was looking at the chart. I saw that it was written, some information. So I asked the gentleman, I said, do you have any pain? He said, no. I said, okay, can you stand up and walk across the exam room? He said, no. I told him why. He said, but because I would have pain then. And his wife turned to me with sort of a frustration, laughing, said, this is what I'm talking about. He sits at home on a couch, watches TV, because if he walks around, he has pain. We can't go out. We can't socialize with friends. We can't do anything because he doesn't want to have pain when he ambulates. We did some studying and we found out he had a narrowing in his spinal canal called spinal stenosis, which caused pain when he would stand and he would walk. So we did some treatment with injections in the spine area. After a couple of treatments, I saw him on his follow-up visit about 3 months ago, 3 months later, and his wife was the happiest woman, more than the patient. And she was saying that, now we're actually able to go out, visit our grandchildren, socialize with our friends, getting out of the house. And she had the biggest smile on her face, I think, much happier than the guy was. But that was, one of the things that I've seen. People adapt to a problem and they think it's normal. So same thing with the tennis player. They are adapting. They say, I'm not going to play for 4 days because it's normal. And they deny that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed. Another problem, Mehrban, is the issue of access. A lot of people don't have access to the care or the facilities that I'm talking about. They don't know where to go and who to reach out to. So they just sit at home and hope things just get better on their own. And the reason I've created the facility that you saw is to provide access to the people, at least locally around me. And who knows, maybe one day I can sort of duplicate this in other areas as well. But access becomes very important, that people would know where to go and then actually do it. And then here we are for them, to help them this journey from beginning till the end.
Yeah, I love that, Reza. And just, to kind of clarify like the process for like when you get injured, like how it works. I mean, if somebody gets injured and then they want to get treatment, I mean, how does that work? Do they first need a referral to go to you? Like, how does, what's the process like?
Well, as far as our facility, they can just call, and we accept almost all insurances, and they can call the office and say that they need to see me. Some insurances requires referrals, so we will contact the primary care doctor and we will get the referral from the primary. So the patient doesn't need to call their primary. We would arrange all that. And I tell all my staff members that we need to see patients right away. Right away means some cases even on the same day, but never more than a few days. Unfortunately, sometimes the insurance companies make it very difficult to see them. But I'm willing, and I've told all my staff members to, at the beginning, even eat the cost of the first visit, because I want to get the patient in. We worry about the insurances later and the future payments, but we want to get them in right away, do the diagnosis, try the treatment as soon as we can. So that's kind of how they can reach us, and again, with the access we talked about, see them right away.
Love that. Yeah, that's a fantastic approach, and obviously, I'm sure all your patients appreciate that you are, so kind as to do that. I guess obviously, besides people like not getting treatment right away, what would you say is the biggest mistake that they make, like once they get injured?
I think the biggest mistake that when they get injured is they think that injury will just go away on its own. Things would
Hmm.
heal on their own with time, which it is true. They do, some injuries get sort of healed by time. However, during this time is the part that you become deconditioned and you develop some permanent changes in the structure of the injured area, which makes you more prone to future injuries.
Mm.
So that is, I think, the biggest mistake, that they realize that, yes, things will get better on their own. And yes, they just wait it out. That's what they tried to do, wait it out.
Yeah, that doesn't sound so great, Reza. The the altering of the structures. Can you talk a bit more about that? Like, I guess when you get injured and then you don't get treated properly, then like you're some compensation is happening so that you can continue to try to function, but it's not the same as before.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are a couple of things. From a worst case scenario is in the nervous system, when somebody has what we call acute pain versus chronic pain. And the acute pain is, think of it as a candle with a flame, that you're putting your finger into the flame, it starts burning and causing pain. And that's a normal, natural response of your body to tell you, take the finger away because it's going to burn your tissue. Now, If you do this a few times and start burning, and actually you burn your finger, then your brain starts thinking about this finger is damaged. The nervous system start changing. And now that's kind of acute pain. The chronic pain is you're not putting your finger in the flame. However, the finger starts feeling the burning that it is. And that's the rewiring of your nervous system. That's called chronic pain. So there are these nerves that they start waking up even though you don't see the injury of putting your finger in the flame. And that's what we call it, a bad pain versus a good pain. Good pain is you want to know that something, it hurts, so you can actually stop that whatever you're doing so you don't get tissue damage, structural damage. But then when you're not doing anything and you're hurting, that's a chronic pain, and that's rewiring of your system. So going back to, other things such as, the ligaments that I was telling you, if you're not treating a swelling, fast enough, that could put some pressure on these ligaments, and it could change the actual elasticity of these ligaments, and they become more stiff. And then that could cause more injury in the future. And then when they get more tears, then it becomes weaker, and more injuries could happen. So that's a very simple way of thinking about a ligament that structurally is changing. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, no, super interesting stuff from a non-medical field individual. So, in terms of injuries that you see, I was curious from what you've seen in your practice, like what are the most common top 2 or 3 injuries that you see from tennis players?
From tennis players, God, I mean, I've seen the most common that we've seen is ankle,
Mm,
and I would say the tennis elbow, as they call it, the elbow
yeah.
pain, then back pain. So those are the 3 most common that we've seen. I have not seen as many comparatively shoulder pain or hip pain, but ankle is one of the most. And again, goes back to agility, and
Mm,
tennis game has really changed. There's more speed with the ball coming at you. With the technology changing, there's more topspin. You're running more lateral, than you used to, and faster, and changing direction. And those things put a lot of pressure on your ankle. So we see a lot of ankle, injuries. And going back to the, elbow, it's not much from sort of they're doing something to the elbow itself that is hurting, but a lot of, at the tennis player, when you're hitting the ball, it's the core that does a lot of the work, and a lot of pressure is on the core. And if you have a weak core, you're more prone to the injury of your elbow and your shoulder and things like that. So
mm,
the stronger core you have as a tennis player, believe it or not, you prevent injuries in your shoulders and elbows.
mm. Super interesting. Is there a particular type of exercise that you should do for your core? Because obviously, there's a lot of these different programs where you do like a ton of crunches and whatnot. But then there's also just various types of like static holds and stuff. So, is there one type of or a specific type of core exercises that we should be trying to focus on?
Well, again, as you mentioned, there are many different ones that you're able to do. But one of the most popular one that I like is the planks,
Mm,
both side planks and the regular planks that you do. That I think is very simple to do. You don't need any equipment, and you can do it. That's a very good one. Doing crunches is good, but you could also, if you're not doing it correctly, you can sort of damage your spine and your back. So you
mm,
got to be careful with the crunches. And then obviously, if you have hip problems, things like that, that could cause some irritation. Planks are really good. The one that you kind of throw the ball sideways, being the medicine ball that you do, that's pretty good. And we have other medicine balls that you can, lie on it, on the ball, and do some movements and, things like that. And we also have now equipments that we can build your muscle core. And I think I mentioned to you, and I showed you
yeah.
in the in your visit. And that's bringing, super technology into it, that not only you can lay just in 30 minutes, build 25%, muscle mass after a few sessions, equivalent to 20,000 crunches that I told you, but it also can prevent if you have hip problem or hip injuries or you can't do certain things, this machine can really help you build it. Now, when you build that core, then you're able to do certain other things in the gym, and that becomes sort of help you in other avenue as well. So now we have the equipment too to build your core.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty interesting that our mutual friend John is the one who helped be the catalyst for that M Sculpt machine there. So shout
Oh
out
yeah.
to John. In terms of the ankle as well, which was a injury that you had and thankfully recovered very quickly from, thanks to your expertise in proactive action. What are a few practices that we can also have, like say if we're prone to ankle injuries, to help us combat that?
As far as exercises go,
Yeah, I would say exercises or preventative, any sort of exercise that we could do, I guess. Yeah.
well, I think again, strengthening exercises of the ankle, and there are a lot of things that you do with bands that you
Uh-huh.
can use resistant. I mean, I love bands in the gym that can help people in various body parts. So bands are one of the bigger things that I use a lot, and resistance. So that helps to sort of building that strength. It goes back to the ligaments and the muscles and building up and exercising it and joint mobility.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So I was reading that article that I referred to earlier, at least a draft of it, and I saw an interesting quote that you said, which is that health and looking good go together. So I was wondering if you could explain what that means.
Well, it's sort of part of uh, our as a human being. We always want to think about looking being healthier, and being healthier actually makes you look better. And by looking better, I don't want to think about it as a superficial of just
Mhm.
physically looking better. It's more the attitude, number one.
Mhm.
If you are healthy and you're confident, it's going to make you look better. Skin is very one of the, it covers the whole body from head to toe. And when you're healthy, when you eat healthy, actually your skin looks better, look healthier. I'm sure you've heard the term that people, just when you look at somebody and you say, hey, you just don't look good, your skin
Yeah.
is dry, and then you hydrate. Hydration is, part of one of the things that I always talk about, nutrition and eating, healthy. Exactly. Hydration. So hydration helps, the skin look good. So by being, healthy and exercising, you're already doing a lot of things that you start feeling good about yourself. And when you're looking good about yourself, you want to continue that. And being losing weight, building a little bit more muscle. All of those things are things that makes you look better, makes you look healthier. When people stand up straight, when you're healthy, you're standing up straight. Your core is strong, your spine, and you actually look taller. And that when people are standing taller, other people think of them as, hey, they look strong and healthy. So a lot of those things kind of go hand in hand.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess going back to the core strength, I was wondering, what would you say are like the biggest mistakes in terms of like technique for that, for like crunches? Because you did mention how like people could injure themselves. So what's the right way of doing crunches and what's the wrong way?
Well, I always tell the wrong way is when you do something and it's hurting you. That's your way of body's telling you you're doing something wrong. But it's really hard to say without observing somebody
Mm,
what they do wrong. But when you're doing your crunches and you're hurting, and not just a little pain, people say no pain, no gain. That is, kind of a normal response of your body. You're doing something and it's hurting a little bit, but it's becoming more and more painful. That's when your body is saying, "Hey, you got to stop." and you're hurting yourself. And that could be, again, in every person could be a little bit different. Somebody's back could be weaker than somebody else. So the way they do their crunches, which could be normal, but if they're causing some pain, that's when they have to stop.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. And
listen to your brain, what the brain is telling you.
yeah, 100%. And then in terms of the cryo machine, just going back to cryotherapy, what is it about that machine that helps us recover? Because I read how you mentioned that you could play 3 hours of tennis and then go in the cryo machine for a few minutes and then play 3 more hours. And as well, Mensur Barami had espoused the benefits of it. So like, what does it do from a standpoint of like affecting your body that allows you to recover so quickly and have energy?
Well, some of it is mystery, but generally speaking, with the cold and changing the temperature, you're vasoconstricting, you're vasodilating your blood flow as well as your muscle. So when your muscles after a big workout builds up some lactic acid in it, you want to get rid of it. And part of getting rid of it is contracting the muscle, and then you have the blood vessels around it, the circulation, which you need that to take all this toxins away from that muscle, which then flushes out. So the cryo machine does the contraction, and then when the cryo is finished, the vasodilatation of both the muscle and the blood flow helps clean up these toxins that they build in your muscle. It also helps with the cold to reduce some of the inflammatory responses that your body has with repetition of exercise that you've done with your muscles and your joints. And it also helps with building endorphins in your body. And endorphins are sort of a natural hormones that helps you feel stronger and having more energy. So all of these things together at the end give you the result of improved circulation, improve energy, feeling more energetic.
Gotcha, Reza. And in terms of hot or cold, I think people get confused. Like, after they play tennis, like, should I be, going to the ice bath, or should I be taking a hot shower, or should I be doing both? Like, which one should come first? So, any thoughts on those questions?
Sure. One of the things going back to the cryo, which I love compared to ice bath. I don't know if you ever done ice bath or not, but it is very painful compared to cryo. And the reason is that cryo, you are having cold air around your body. When you go in an ice bath, there's water, basically, or ice, which they're physically touching the pressure, the receptors on your skin. And some of these pressure receptors, which air is not really affecting those, causes pain. And when you go in an ice bath, more painful, you can't be on it much longer than, for me, it was 30 seconds was my max. And I've seen some people maybe do another minute or so. But you get a lot more. With cryo, you're there for 3 minutes. You can tolerate it. So you're going to get a lot more out of a cryo than an ice bath. Obviously, cryo, not every place has it, is not accessible. And that's why a lot of people use ice bath, but that's kind of the difference between the two. But going back to the question that you're asking me, when you're doing a lot of the stuff that you're doing, you need to reduce the swelling and the inflammation. And the first thing is doing ice, cryo, things like that to bring down the swelling, the inflammation. Then when that's kind of down, then if you want to take a nice hot shower, it would be nice to sort of loosen up those muscles that now are tired and contracted. But first, you want to get all the toxins out of your of your muscles, and then help with decreasing the swelling, the inflammation that has happened.
Got it. So if you were to do the the opposite, and like you take like a warm shower and then you follow it up with like a ice bath or cryo, would that kind of like mess things up? Would it still be all right, or just not as efficient?
It's not going to kill you, but in my
Yeah.
mind, I think it's sort of defeating some of the purpose of the recovery and the most efficient recovery.
Gotcha, Reza. And one cool thing that I think you might have mentioned earlier, but you treat a ton of players from JTCC, including Francis Tiafoe, who's Maryland's favorite tennis player. So curious, like what types of things, and I don't know how if you have to keep some of those things private, but like what does he generally do, or treatments that he takes at your office, at your facility?
Um, well, yeah, as you mentioned, some of the stuff we have to. However, Francis even posted on his own social media about cryotherapy.
Yeah,
So, cryotherapy again is something that a lot of athletes across the country have used it, and publicly they've been talking about it, from basketball players to tennis players to other people. And I never forget there was an epic match with Wawrinka and Tsitsipas at the French Open a few years ago. It was a five-setter match,
yeah,
and after that long match, Wawrinka, which won, went and did the cryo treatment in the
yeah.
French Federation I showed you, and he was posting all about it. And the next day, he had another long match, and he was ready for it. So a lot of athletes, even from JTCC, that they come, they use the cryo, and they find it, fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome, great stuff. And also, just in terms of like your facility, I'm curious, like what other, well, I know a lot of the machinery and tools there, but like, what's sort of kind of the layout in terms of like the any other machinery or tools that you have that you use on tennis players that maybe we haven't mentioned?
Well, we have a mechanical traction table, and that basically it's a table that you lay on. There's straps around your abdomen, your thorax, and your sort of that area, and connected to a computer, and we enter certain information on it, and we were able to, now the machine knows how much to stretch you for how long and what intensity. And that's something that sort of opens up your spine. I've probably have seen some commercials on TV, or that people say, "Oh, buy this equipment and you're sort of upside down, you're floating like a bat, and that helps to stretch your back." The problem with something like that is the blood is now rushing to your brain, and you can't tolerate it more, and can cause more problems with it. And it's an uncontrolled setting. But the idea again is to stretch your spine, and this machine does that in a more controlled and scientific way. So that's one of the equipment we have. Tennis players have used it. I myself have used it to kind of stretch my spine. I'm trying to get taller too every day. Unfortunately, I get up, gravity keeps pushing it down. But that's one of the things. We also have another piece of equipment called cold laser therapy, which is a non-invasive piece of equipment. Uses different wavelengths that penetrates your muscles and ligaments, that they're kind of swollen and inflamed and causing some pain. Again, we use that non-invasive piece of equipment. We in our physical therapy, we have tons of other gadgets that we use, including those electrical stimulation that I told you. I used it on my ankle. Another thing that we have in our place, I don't know if you remember it, is it was a wall with
Yep.
some lights in it,
Yeah.
and that helps exercise your brain. We want to focus on the physical body, your joints, your muscles, everything else we talked about, but exercising brain is very important too. And why do we need, to exercise brain? To stay sharp. On
Mhm.
a tennis court, no matter how strong you are, if you're not smart and you don't have good reflexes and thinking, being moving fast enough, things like that, using your brain, it's you would lose the match. So this piece of equipment is specializes in exercising your brain. And in this area, we're the only one who has this. Originally, I saw it at the French Open, about 6, 7 years ago when I was visiting Mansour, and somebody, would stand in front of this little wall, if you want to think of it, and some lights would come on, about maybe 7 or 8 different areas, and you would touch these lights with your hand, so kind of help with your reflexes. That was a kind of a simple way. The wall that we have here, it's made by SmartFit. It's a company in the U.S. It has about 9 different lights, if you want to think of it, and areas. And then you can program it with different color lights come on. So you tell the trainer, program it, and you, as participant, will say, okay, just touch the yellow line, a yellow light. So when the yellow light comes on and another light could be red, you're not supposed to touch it, because now your brain is not just reflexes, but you're training your brain. You know, the muscle memory that they say your arm would have when you play tennis, you want to have that kind of memory in your brain as far as the reflexes go. So that's, one of the things, various programs you can have with this machine, with alphabets and things like that. L, you touch only your left hand or your right hand. You can spend literally a good hour on just one piece of equipment, simple exercises, and then you get a score. At the end, you can compete against yourself, or when you're in a group, you can compete against each other. So that's another piece of equipment we have here that not many places focus on, and that's training your brain, exercising your brain. What else do we have here? We talked about yoga, stretching. I think stretching is important. Sometimes, when you do yoga, you're kind of limited of how much you can do. But when you have a professional stretcher working with you, they can actually push you a little bit more and focus to some areas that you cannot, get the maximum benefit by stretching it. And we have that. It's a human who's doing the stretching, is not the machine, in that different than the mechanical traction I was telling you. They work on different body parts. So that's another thing we have here. The list goes on and on. I lose track of what we have here.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
a
no.
comprehensive place.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff there, a lot of quality stuff. Also, just want to touch upon. I know we talked about your experience visiting the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, and just want to ask you how your experience there was, and how it perhaps changed your outlook on tennis and or medicine.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. It was one of the best experiences I had. It was full of energy. They have a school for the kids. Some of the kids that they go to school, they don't play tennis, but the majority of them do play tennis. They have kids from ages, I think, 9 or 10, maybe a little bit older, till 18, and they spend half a day in school, half a day playing tennis, or being, doing exercises and things like that. And then obviously I went to an adult program, and you can modify that to your needs. You can play 1 hour a day, you can play 5 hours a day, depending on what you want to do. You can be in the gym with the personal trainer for half an hour or 2 hours, again, depending on what you do. The program that I sort of custom made for myself was, I was playing 4 hours of tennis one-on-one, with a tennis coach. Obviously, it was breaking on 2 2-hour sessions. There's some people who, there are 2 or 3 people with one coach, two or three friends. They can do that, but I chose to do the one-on-one like that. And then, so that was 4 hours of tennis. And then I also did some matches with some of the participants later on. So I almost played 5 6 hours of tennis in a day. I spend about an hour and a half with the personal trainer in the gym, working on various body parts, and half an hour of stretching there. I spend during the day about an hour with the physio. They're working on certain areas of your body that they wanted. And then at the end of the day, after doing all of that, I was beat. They did not have cryo; they had ice bath, which again, my record was only 30 seconds. I could be in it. Then after that, I would get a massage, trying to kind of recover. And then next day, the day would start. Same thing, 8 hours of doing everything else. I did that for almost 8 days in a row,
Wow.
and it was great experience. I saw Rafa there training, and that was another amazing thing to watch him train. When you watch him on a tennis court in a match, he puts 100%. On a practice court, he does the exact same thing. He spends 100% giving it on a practice court. Every ball he hits has a purpose. It's not goofing around. I've seen some people, when they're not playing matches or during the training, they goof around. He does not goof around during the training. He's such a humble guy, walks around with no bodyguard. People can approach him. You never know. He won so many Grand Slams, getting autographs, taking pictures with him. It's just a very nice thing to see somebody in with that stature being so humble. I even saw him, and this is not a rumor. He cleaned the clay court after he finished the training, and the coaches there, the energy. There's a lot of energy there, and again over there they do have a clinic, not to the extent that we have everything here that you visited, but they also spend a lot of time thinking about, injury, talking to the kid, the juniors that they're playing there, and trying to keep him healthy. And that was another thing that I tried to bring back that mentality, try to keep the juniors healthy, educating them, telling them about, as I mentioned earlier during the podcast, that don't be afraid if something bothers you, you're injured, to communicate that with your coaches, with your trainer, so they can treat it, properly. So it was a great experience. I loved it. I've been there twice, and unfortunately, the pandemic happens, and I couldn't go. And I'm trying to get back there again as soon as I can.
Yeah, I love to hear that. And, I'm sure it's much different when you actually like see Rafa's intensity like in person versus just like hearing about it probably has a more profound impact on you. So that is super cool. Reza, do you also have like an open house event coming up pretty soon as well? Is that right?
Yes, we have an open house coming up on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo, and I think it's about 4 to 7. And our address is 5454 Wisconsin Avenue in Chevy Chase, Maryland. We're right near the border of the DC line, the District of Columbia. And if you guys are around, you can come and see the place for yourself, get a tour. There are a lot of promotional things that we're doing giveaway for people. And you can see everything that I told you in person, meet some of the team members here, and experience everything I said in person. Again, that's on May 5th, coming up, 4 to 7 at APMI Wellness Center in Chevy Chase, Maryland.
Very cool, Reza. And is there anywhere that you'd like people to go that to like follow either what you're doing or what APMI Health and Wellness are doing, like any socials or websites or anything like that?
Yes, we do have a Facebook, and we have an Instagram. So you can find us again both on Instagram, on Facebook APMI Wellness in Chevy Chase, Maryland. And we post frequently a lot of the stuff that we have here, and things that we do, and people that come here and their experiences. If you visit our website, we get a lot of information on it too. And that's www.apmiwellness.com. And there's a section about some videos that we've posted of people's experiences of being here. So it's a very unique place that I've tried to create. But more than anything, it's my message that even if you can't come here, try to remember things that I was telling you, and incorporate that into everyday life that you have on and off the tennis court.
Love that, Reza. Fantastic. And yeah, are there any other points that you'd like to chat about that I have maybe haven't asked you about, or just want to give you the floor for one more comment or anything like that if you'd like.
Well, again, first of all, thanks for giving me this platform to speak about what I really am so passionate about, and that's now combining tennis and medicine. That I love both. Yeah, I think tennis is one of the best sports. I'm sure a lot of your audience are already tennis players. I don't have to preach to them, but it's a sport that you can play at a very, very young age. You've seen, I'm sure, as soon as you can stand up and hold a racket, could be 2 years old, you can play tennis. Till I think officially the 100-year-old tennis player is a Ukrainian, or 97. I'm sorry, 97, I believe. It's a Ukrainian gentleman who was in Rafa's academy playing a tournament, and met Rafa, and video of them are all over the social media. So you can be that old and play tennis. There was a study came out in one of the Scandinavian countries a while ago that showed people who play tennis actually live longer. And people say, well, why? It's not just a physical aspect, but as I mentioned earlier, it's a social sport. And people who are actually more social, as they grow older, they can live longer. The friendships that they're built on a tennis court is priceless. So it's a game that can bring people together from any nationality, any race, any gender, any age. They can just play together. And it's a physical game, which again, that's another topic we can talk about, how the game of tennis have changed since I started many years ago to now. And Also, it's a game that not only is physical but mental, and it has a lot of great life lessons. And tennis is one of the few sports that you could be down 2 sets, match point, and with one more point, you're out. You can come back. You can come back and win. So never give up. That's one of the things that in tennis, anything could happen, and just stick with it, continue. And that was one of the things I love about Rafa, is he plays 1 point at a time. And You never know. You could be down all the way to match point, and you play 1 point at a time. You can come back. So it's a great game. Again, maybe one day we can talk about my sort of opinion on the tennis game compared to many other sports. But again, I'm glad that we had this opportunity to talk about what I can offer to a lot of tennis players. And again, every athlete, everything that I told you here applies to other sports as well. You can play lacrosse, you can play basketball, football, anything, and get injured. And things that I mentioned earlier applies to every sport and everybody.
Yeah, fantastic, Reza. And I guess you brought it up. So before we go, I'm curious to hear how the game has, in fact, kind of changed since you started playing it.
Well, it's become a lot more physical and a lot more mental. And I think obviously more physical than mental. The mental part is, again, because of the physicality of it change, makes it mentally more challenging. But yeah, I mean, the racket has changed, the technology, the strings have changed, the speed of the ball has changed with the topspin, and the tactics have changed. People used to serve and volley. Surfaces have changed. I mean, that was a very typical tennis match with Pete Sampras, if you remember. One of the serve and volleyers that you beat. Yannick Noah was another guy. John McEnroe. They all used to serve and volley, and the points were very short. But now points are much longer. People are playing more from the baseline that they used to, and playing from the baseline is a lot of lateral movements, a lot of speed. The ball is coming at you; it's not floating with huge speed. I mean, now sometimes these winners are 105, 110 miles per hour. It's amazing. Serve has changed tremendously, and as you can see, people have gotten taller in when the tennis players. It used to be, the ideal height was, 5'10", 5'11", and now it's not uncommon. You see people who are, 6'1", 6'2", with Rafa, Novak, and Rogers' generation. And now with the Medvedevs and Hachanovs and Tsitsipas's and Zverevs, they're all 6'4", 6'5". American tennis player Isner and Opelka, they're all like taller than that. So the game itself has become a lot more physical than it used to be. And when I was playing tennis, our off-court preparation was just run around the court for 2-3 laps and do a little bending over and standing up, and that was your sort of stretching. Now there's a science behind all of those things, and what all the different exercises, dynamic stretching before you start a game. It's another thing. Before I go, talking about injuries. If you spend 10, 15 minutes before you start your match doing some dynamic stretching, you're preparing your body. So when you go on a tennis court and you make that, run for the drop shot or running from left to right, you're less chance of, injuring yourself. Your muscles are loosened, your ligaments are looser, your joints, all of those things. So unfortunately, some of the people I talk to, they say, I don't have time to spend, 10 minutes doing stretching before. I think you should stretch obviously before and after, but stretching before, it's definitely one of those things that helps prevent injuries, doing that. I try to do it before long matches. My record has been playing 6 hours straight of tennis match. So it's not uncommon when I play 4 hours. And I spend about 40 minutes before those long matches doing dynamic stretching. And that really helps. Now, afterwards, again, you need to get all the stretching, recovery, things like that can help you.
Love that. Yeah, definitely the game has changed and much more physical, and that's why we need to take even more care of our bodies than before. So good stuff, Reza. Well, yeah, with that, definitely encourage everybody to check out apmiwellness.com. And if you're in the area, if you're around Maryland, DC, Virginia, et cetera, then come visit the open house on May 5th. So that would be fantastic. Reza, thanks a lot. Look forward to seeing you either at your facility or on the court sometime, and I'm sure we'll do that soon. So appreciate your time and looking forward to chatting next time. And thanks a lot for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. And again, thanks for the opportunity. And I hope you invite me back again.
Oh, for sure, Reza. Thanks a lot, and have a good one.
You too.
Thanks. All right. I really hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Reza Ghorbani. And if you are in the area, I definitely would highly recommend that you check out APMI Health and Wellness Center, especially on May 5th when they have their open house. So definitely go to their website, links in the show notes. So when you pop open this episode in Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app of choice, or on my website at tennisfiles.com/podcast, you will see the link to APMI Health and Wellness Center, and you can check them out. It's a really great facility. And also, if you enjoyed this podcast episode and if you have found value from the show, then I would really, really appreciate it if you would leave a review for the Tennis Files podcast in Apple Podcasts or in your favorite podcast app that you use to listen to the show. I think we have well over 100 ratings and reviews right now, which is cool. So definitely helps give the show more exposure and put it higher in the rankings. And I really just only care about that because then more people will see the podcast when they search for tennis podcasts, and they'll listen and benefit. So definitely would appreciate that review if you haven't already left one yet. I also would like to leave you with a quote, as I often do at the end of the show. And this one is by Jim Rohn. And Jim said, "If you are not willing to risk the usual, you will have to settle for the ordinary." Really fantastic quote there. You definitely don't want to leave this earth with any regrets. And so you got to go for, those goals that you really feel inside of you that you want to pursue. All right. With that, thanks so much for listening. And I will see you on the next episode of the Tennis Files podcast. This is Mehrban Aranshad signing out.